All right, so this is a brief primer to the recognition meditation. I'm going to briefly go through the technique and then talk about some of the thinking and the reasoning behind it. So the technique is essentially, we're in a meditative posture, right? We're breathing, and we essentially have two focuses, right? The first is we want to notice when thought is occurring, and the second is we want to notice when tension is occurring. And the technique we're going to use is when we notice or recognize that that's happening, we use that as a prompt to essentially notice a complementary thing occurring. So for example, when we notice tension occurring, what we do is we recognize and we use that as a prompt to relax, right? And you can think of that two ways. You could use it as a prompt to take the action of relaxation. You could also use it as an opportunity to notice the relaxation that already exists. Likewise, when we notice or recognize thinking is in place, right, we use this as an opportunity to re-engage with feeling, right, with sensation in the physical body. And we can either make a deliberate move to kind of get into our feeling state, or we can kind of gently let go of the thought and then notice where we're already having feeling in our body. Because it's tempting to think of these things as binary, right, that our attention is in thought and not in feeling, or that our attention is in tension and not in relaxation. In truth, though, it's more of a gradient, more of a continuum. Our attention tends to be blended in both at once. And so what this is an invitation to do is to really try to restore balance, right? It's not that having attention in thought is bad or having attention on tension is bad. It's just that in my experience, I know I personally, and I sense this with a lot of others too, we tend to be tipped a little bit too much toward these. And so the purpose of this meditation is to help to restore the balance, help us to recognize when we're kind of tipping into thought or to tension too much, and invite us to restore the balance by coming into the complementary piece, the relaxation or the sensation. And as I like to do in a lot of techniques, I think one thing to do is periodically refresh, right? So you're doing the technique, you're regrounding thought into feeling, you're regrounding tension into relaxation. This can be taxing, right, on our attention, taxing on our mind, even taxing on the body. So periodically what we want to do is just kind of drop the technique, breathe in, breathe out. We can do it a few times. This is just kind of rinsing things out for ourselves, giving ourselves a break. You could think of it like in an exercise, taking a little break between your repetitions or your sets, to kind of let yourself reset. And then I'll help keep it fresh instead of building up a lot of tension and building up a lot of thought around the meditation itself, which is something that inevitably happens. So using this little breathing technique as a way to kind of reset that, build up any, get rid of any meta that's built up and kind of get back to the raw experience of the meditation. And one thing I want to encourage here is in terms of attitude. It's really easy when we look at this layout to think, okay, well, I get it. Thought, therefore, must be bad. Right? Tension must be bad, feeling must be good, relaxation must be good. And what I encourage is try not to fall into this kind of duality mindset, right? I use the yin yang to kind of represent that, putting all the things that seem negative into the shadow or the darkness, thrusting everything positive into the light, and basically saying, okay, I'm going to try to be this, I'm going to try not to be that. What this tends to do is it tends to divide us. It has a negativity or a scarcity attitude kind of built into it, so it's always going to be ultimately draining on our energy and ultimately kind of confusing to our minds because it's trying to kind of reduce and divide the world instead of appreciating the world and its complexity. We could acknowledge, of course, that the technique is trying to tip us in this direction, but again, as I said before, it's not out of avoidance of these things as being bad or wrong, but more out of a desire to restore balance and a harmony because we tend to be over-inclined and toward these things and under-inclined toward these. So I think a healthier way to look at it would be to think of it as being in an open heart, right? We have thought and we have feeling, we have tension, we have relaxation. And again, instead of putting a line or a wall between them and dividing them into good or bad, we have them in the open field. And I like to use the infinity symbol, like this Mobius strip, to indicate the dance or the harmony of the two. Because this is really what we're wanting to do, right? It wouldn't be healthy to exclusively feel or to exclusively think, to have exclusively relaxation or exclusively tension, right? There's times in our lives, and really at all times in our lives, we want to have some combination of these, some blend of these. And so it's really about finding the harmony. We're using this technique with this bias to try to counteract, right, an existing imbalance, but we don't want to lose sight in that process of the fact that ultimately thinking and tension are no worse or better than relaxation and feeling, right? This is just simply a technique we're trying to do to restore harmony. And so if you want to meditate on these two symbols, right, and we certainly don't want to put the yin yang in a yin yang of its own, right? So you can think of these as kind of being in harmony. And you can say when you notice your mind slipping into this approach, right, which again, I certainly do. I think that's something we as human beings, especially in this day and age, tend to do a lot. We don't judge it. We don't do its bad. We don't put the yin yang inside of its own shadow in the yin yang. We just put that in harmony with the open-hearted approach. Recognize that we're going to cycle between them. And the more we can invite and invoke this one, the better our balance will be instead of being so tipped in this direction. Good luck.